A warm welcome to the Clingendael State of the Union 2024 conference. Clingendael is thriving, partly for the wrong reasons. Because of the enormous turbulence around us, governments at all levels, business, NGOs, media, and professionals turn to us to make sense of that turbulence. Turbulence in the world, so drastic that Bundeskanzler Scholz has called it a Zeitenwende. We are moving from a hyper-globalized world under American hegemony to a more multipolar, geopoliticized world with big implications for Western states that have been on a geopolitical holiday for decades. Western states now also have to deal with power politics and become aware of territorial politics and the force of collective identity politics. They have to adapt from believing in an international legal order that served Western interests also very well to the power politics of Russia that followed its invasion of Georgia and its annexation of the Crimea with a large-scale invasion of Ukraine. They must adapt from striving for a world market with universal rights for consumers and producers and an ideal of universal protection of human rights to territorial politics, where nation-states are delineating their communities and resurrecting borders to regain control over their industrial base and labor markets, to redirect their value chains to become more resilient in the light of the instrumentalization of economic dependencies, and to regulate and curb migration in the face of irregular migration pressure, to invest globally in infrastructure and partnerships to connect their territories with critical raw materials and critical foreign markets for their products. And Western states have to adapt from celebrating individualism to a world in which the strongmen that have invested in collective identity politics in their societies are more powerful. Because when you have a convincing narrative for your people about where you come from, where you stand for, and where you are heading as a collective in this turbulent world, it's much easier to mobilize people and to stand in solidarity in the face of global challenges. For a country like the Netherlands, that used to be one of the most globalized countries in the world, this Zeitenwende in the world from hyperglobalization to geopolitics is a huge paradigm shift. But at Clingendael, René and I always say, there are two interlinked Zeitenwendes going on, not only in the world, but also within Western democracies. A Zeitenwende within Western democracies from left-right politicization and a permissive consensus about international politics towards a politicization of international politics in reaction to societal pessimism and a sense of loss of control over societies in a hyper-globalized world. A politicization along a cultural axis between nationalists and globalists. And since the large-scale invasion of Russia and Ukraine and the resulting gas price inflation, only political parties that have a position on both personal economic security, that is the left-right dimension in politics, as well as a narrative on how to deal with global challenges, that is on the cultural axis, can win elections. Now this Zeitenwende within our Western societies is getting an enormous impulse by the re-election of Donald Trump. Because of the world power of the US, of course, Trump embodies the double Zeitenwende of the shift to power politics, territorial politics, and collective identity, MAGA politics in the world, and the rise of nationalism in Western societies. Over the last decades, we have seen the rise of three types of nationalists in Western societies. First, stupid nationalists. They take their country out of the European Union and they suffer economically. This species of nationalist is dying out. After Brexit, we hear no longer pleas for Nexits or Frexits. Then second, We have malicious nationalists. They cause chaos and polarization, and then they blame judges, the deep state, or the EU, and profit electorally from societal deception and declinism. But it's the third type of nationalist that might become the game changer in the double Zeitenwende. And that third type are the smart nationalists. They are the internationalists. The nationalists that take office and find out in government that you can only deliver on your promises, your election promises, when you cooperate internationally. The nationalists, like Meloni, who understand that you need to cooperate within the EU and with Tunisia and Egypt to protect your borders from irregular migration, that you need selective labor migration to survive in an aging Italy. Or the Danish, who would by now rather get rid of their opt-out in migration policies, since they see that the EU is more powerful in dealing with third countries. Now, if nationalists become internationalists, the two Zeitenwendes in the world and within Western societies start oscillating. And that's the mind-boggling turbulence that we face now. Internationalism has for decades been loaded with progressive or neocon content, cooperating internationally to avoid climate change, to enforce democracy in third countries. But internationalism is, of course, a competence that also deeply conservative and nationalist forces might develop. And if they start cooperating internationally, that can really change the EU from within, as well as the global order. It will matter a lot then which variant of nationalism will become dominant globally. Because in a geopolitical, de-risking world, majorities become, of course, nationalist to a certain extent. Now, will we see a dominance of exclusive nationalism, where Western leaders define the collective identity of their nation in religious or ethnic terms, as Christian, white nation, Orban, Trump, AfD, Vlaams Belang, etc., etc.? Or will we see a development of inclusive nationalism, where Western leaders define the collective identity of their nation in terms of a societal project, traditions, virtues, the Netherlands of the hard-working Dutchman, in the words of the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Rutte of the Netherlands. I, as a hard-working Chinese, Indonesian, French, Dutch woman, might be part of that societal project. A big question to progressives and liberals today, then, is whether they can also rediscover internationalism, that is, cooperation between nation states, not cosmopolitanism and not neoliberalism, since for decades they have been de facto open-border globalists hoping for either world government or world market. To understand the turbulence of this double Zeitenwende that starts oscillating because of the rediscovery of internationalism, we need all of you. It is for that reason that we brought together here in this conference specialists of world politics and specialists of Western societies, international relation and regional specialists, and sociologists, historians, and political scientists. I'm very much looking forward to the combined intellectual power of all of you, because we need a joining of forces to make sense of what is going on. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. And now I would like to give the floor to René Couperus, who has been leading the team with Diederik van Wijk, Frederik Baks, and many others organizing this conference. René, you have the floor. Two Diederiks. Even, yeah.
Thank you, Monika. Dear conference participants, also from my side as conference organizer, I would like to welcome you all. Just a few words from me about the character and the make-up of our conference. We deliberately planned the event just after the US presidential elections. Not to be able to mention Donald Trump's name 100 times. I think there should be a cap on that, this conference. We are allowed only to say Trump 20 times. Otherwise it might be problematic. The world is much more and much bigger than Donald Trump alone, thank goodness. Now we organized this event just after the US presidential elections because regardless of the election result, we could already foresee that this would be a very crucial election. Not only for the cause of world order, but also for domestic democratic relations. Trump, as Monika just mentioned, is not only a symbol of the disruption of international relations, he is also a symbol of the disruption of domestic relations, of Western democracy. That's the reason why this conference is set in a double key, that of both geopolitics and domestic politics. Europe has a dual mission, how to achieve a stronger geopolitical competitive Europe and how to achieve more stable national democracies. In one sense, the conference is all about the realization that you cannot have a strong Europe with fragmented, polarized national democracies. Look at Germany, look at France, look at the Netherlands. That is why in the program we saw the mix of foreign and domestic politics, EU and national democracy, and also a mix of foreign policy experts and society thinkers. We need both to chart a way forward. We have structured the program in such a way that we can cover many different topics. Therefore, the focus of this conference is strongly on breakout sessions, with only a few plenary sessions. There are breakout sessions on many of today's hot topics. The European security situation after Trump and the war in Ukraine, EU enlargement and EU reform, the faltering state of the Franco-German axis, the position of the post-Brexit UK after Trump, migration, climate, technological innovation and the anti-establishment radical right revolt. We have chosen to hold these sessions under Chatham House rule. That means, simply said, that speakers may not be quoted by name. To encourage discussion and only live stream the plenary sessions. We also invited 20 students from Leiden University College. I don't think they are in this room, they are in a separate room over here. They have also a special program partly, but they have, I think they can have a live stream connection. These students from Leiden University College were selected on motivation and the quality of the essays on the State of the Union. They will sit in the corridors during the coffee breaks and during the lunch break, and there they give poster presentation pitches about the essays on the State of Europe. So you can have a talk with them about their vision on the future of Europe. I think that's very, very interesting to do during the breaks. In short, it promises to be a lively, varied conference at a crucial time for Europe and the Netherlands. We look forward for an inspiring day.